evening, and welcome to the April 11th, 2016 meeting of the Wakefield Board of Selectmen. Do we have minutes?
Yep.
Yep,
Yes.
okay, we'll jump to minutes. Can I please have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from March 28th, 2016?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Paul, second by Betsy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Steve, would you like?
I think we're waiting for Mr. Crump. Why don't suggest maybe, Madam Chair, there's no public participation.
Yep.
If you could move down to 4D, maybe?
Sure. Action item 4D, there's a request from Wakefield Little League to hold the opening day parade on Saturday, April 23rd, 2016, starting at 10 a.m. at the Upper Common and ending at Fernald Field, and to have the board participate in the parade and opening day ceremonies.
Move approval, Madam Chairman.
Second.
Moved by Betsy, second by Paul, all in favor?
Aye.
Excellent.
You can do.
I will move to F. There's a request from the Lucius Beebe Memorial Library to accept and expend a gift or give to the Memorial Library in the amount of $1,368 from various donors with thanks.
So moved.
Moved by Paul, second by Brian. All in favor?
Aye.
Now I'd
try to
like to
speak
go
up louder.
back to action item A. We have Peter Crump, who's here for an Eagle Scout project. And welcome, Peter. And are you his dad?
No,
No, you're his leader.
Dad's out there. I'm
Dad's-
his advisor.
Oh, hi, Dad. So, Peter, if you could tell us about your project.
So, I have actually prepared some many, would you mind passing these out? So this, he's just passing around my, my proposal for my Eagle Scout project.
Thank you.
So, every year in June, the Boy Scout troop helps the veterans in Wakefield with a Flag Day ceremony. And I've noticed that in order to retire the flags that are no longer in use, we use kind of just old, it's like half of 55-gallon metal barrels, and I'd like to change that. I'd like to create a permanent fire ring down on the common to use on Flag Day as well as other flag retirement ceremonies and other national holidays. And since it's on the town land, I'm here to ask permission from you.
Thank you. Any questions for Peter or comments?
I would love to make a comment, if you don't mind. I remember going to the last flag burning situation, and the wind was, I'm sure you people were there, the wind was high, and we were in the half barrel, and I'm thinking, oh my Lord, this I think is a great idea. And I was amazed at the number of flags that get turned in every year. It's amazing to me, but I think it's a great idea. And I love the detail that you have in here, right down to calling dig safe. I love it. Every bit of it is so. I'd expect nothing less, though, from your experience and your supervisors and your trainers and everything. Yeah, great.
I order that ceremony every year. I've never missed it. And people in my neighborhood or friends, they bring me some of the flags and I bring them down. And I think you just do a wonderful job. And it's such a good day. And so I think anything that we can do to be of help should be done.
Thank you.
I think this is a great project. It's a very good project. I like this. It's a permanent structure there. This will be very good. A nice addition. Good.
Yeah, how old are you?
Sorry?
How old are you?
I am 17.
17? I bet the hardest part of the whole project is coming here and sitting on TV and have to ask us for permission. So, no, you did a great job. It's a nice job, great project, and good luck to you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Excellent. Yeah, very well done.
Thank you.
Really impressive. So, do we need a?
I think a motion is certainly in order, Madam Chairman. The only item I would request is that the board, the placement be worked out with the DPW director, the exact placement.
Absolutely.
Move that we accept this request, provided that everyone checks in with Rick Stinson,
Yes.
head of the DPW.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Well,
Thank
good
you so
luck,
much.
Peter.
Good luck.
It's a
Good luck.
wonderful
Thank you.
project. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're getting down to the wire. You have, what, a year to go, right? Or less?
About 6 months.
6 months, okay.
Yeah.
So,
It's a little
no
more-
pressure.
A little more time than a little more time than the kids before me, but
Yeah.
still not
Great.
enough.
You have
Congratulations.
confidence.
Thank you.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
very much.
Thank you.
Two copies.
Okay. We'll move to item 4B, the MWRA Prospect Street Water Main and Vault project. You could come to the table and identify yourselves, please, or introduce yourselves.
Hi, good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Jeff McLaughlin. I'm with the Public Affairs Department at the Massachusetts Water Resource Authority.
And I'm Patrick Barrett with the MWRA Engineering and Construction Department. What we're here for is, we've been working with Mr. Stinson and Mr. Collins on a large water project, the redundancy of the Golden Intermediate High system. The town of Wakefield is served by that system. It's actually about 36,000 feet of pipe. The majority is 48-inch diameter. It actually runs through mostly Reading and Stoneham, but there is a small leg that comes out North Street, Prospect Street, that will serve this community as an additional meter. I don't know if you want to look here on the board. So some of the stuff we've already done is in the top right corner, left corner, probably the orange or yellow is the West Street project, which has already been completed. The green is also in the short-term improvement connection between Stoneham and Reading that was completed also. We have started construction on the, I guess, pink portion up here in Reading, which is a 36-inch line that we're actually have started construction on right now. You may have seen us out on Main and Hopkins Street if you're in that area. And the next project out on the street is the purple line here, which is a 48-inch main. It's roughly 7,800 feet of 48-inch main. As part of that, from the intersection where the 99 is, we'll be running a 16-inch main out North Street, turns into Prospect Street. At Prospect Street, just in the right-of-way, we'll be locating a new water meter for the community of Wakefield. And from that point, it'll be a 12-inch line that runs to the intersection of Prospect and Hopkins to connect to your local supply. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for is permission to place that meter at the location. Although this will give the town a third meter, one of the reasons for it is actually the follow-on project to this will be, the authority will be rehabbing its existing system once the new loop is in place. And one of your meters is served by an existing 20-inch line. That line will be taken out of service in about 5 years for rehabilitation itself, so this meter actually provides the redundancy for that.
Rick, do you have anything to add or comments?
No, we've been working with them,
Can tell.
and you have the permit that we've
Absolutely.
drafted there. I don't know if you, I know I've received some comments and I've added them in. If you have any comments, let me know and we can add them in. But if you're good with the layout of that, we're gonna sign it tomorrow and
Great.
get it off to them.
Brian?
Yeah, can you walk me through what is actually gonna be done? I was trying to look at the schematics you have here, just what's actually gonna be done, and what does it look like when it is done? So,
All right, so the
is
pipe
it all
is...
underground? I mean, I
It's-
understand the underground, I'm actually concerned about what's above ground.
All right, so what above ground, what you would see is, so above ground, actually it's hard to see. You would see a meter cabinet, so there's basically, it's an 18 by 18, about 3 feet tall meter cabinet and a power cabinet sitting beside it. So that's what you would see as above grade structures. Below, and also above grade would be 2 manholes that are locations for getting you access. Everything else is below grade.
Okay.
So you'd see 2 manholes sitting in that grassed area just off the street. So we'd like to put our manholes off the right-of-way, in the right-of-way, but off the street itself, so if we have to take access. And the road itself, at completion of the line going in, would be paved curb to curb.
So that the meter chamber, that's underground?
It's a vault underground, yes.
All right, so the only thing is that little box above ground called meter cabinet on this plan?
That's above grade.
And then you said it's 18 inches?
It's roughly 18 by 18, 3 feet tall. 18
Okay.
inches and by 18.
Okay. And then it says there's trees getting removed, or we're replacing those when we're done? Is that in
There are 3 trees that will be removed in order to place the vault. We'll, inch for inch caliper, we won't be replacing the trees themselves, but we're willing to work with the town to provide trees for inch caliper to place wherever they want.
Yeah, it's a good idea. And then any kind of, work with rec for any kind of little landscape screening or something, very often, just another box sitting on the side of the road. It'd be great if there was one bush.
Actually, one of our concerns at that location, we're still working on, is we would probably like to put bollards on either side of it, because it is really in a busy roadway area if somebody hit it. And then we can hide the bollards with
You can screen those.
screenings I provide, something to just keep them hidden a little bit also.
Yeah.
Again, the request and the location where that is now is something that we requested, because the original request was to put it on the island at Hopkins Street in Prospect, and not knowing what that would be used for in the future and the way people use it now.
Sure.
We didn't think it was a good idea to put that
thank you.
there.
Yeah.
We wanted it more towards the stone line.
Oh,
Oh.
my bad. I blew it.
Ball up on the table.
Any
The
other
dancing
questions
beak.
from any of the members? Paul?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is mostly with the disturbance to the surrounding area. You have a list in here stating when you will not be working.
Yes.
And on certain days. And you're going to abide by everything on 154.6? So whatever's in there as far as the weekends is going to be applicable to this?
Yes, if they need a, to work at nighttime, which that may be possible, I don't know, then they would have to request a permit like anyone else does.
Okay, so my concern is to not have the neighboring community be disrupted any more than they have to be. So if you're working there will be no working on Sundays, like,
Correct.
okay, so, I mean, that would,
Our typical work is out Monday through Friday, 7 to 3:30 would be our typical work hours.
okay, that's great.
And Mr. Stinson has provided us with a number of days where the town has activities where they don't want the construction going on. We have no problem with those things. You really shouldn't see a ton of disturbance from this. At this point, other than the meter vault going itself, which will be a large excavation. Vault is roughly 8 by 14, I think, or 15 feet
6.
long. So it's a relatively large structure, but the line feeding up to it is a 16-inch water main, so you only see a 3-foot wide trench coming up the street, and leaving is a 12-inch water main, so similarly you'll see a 24-inch wide trench
Right.
heading up the street from it. But other than the vault, you won't see significant disruption.
And my last thing is going to echo what Brian said, as far as the trees, I would really like to see, if something happened to one of the trees, that they were all replaced, instead of just leaving them.
We met out there with the MWRA, and I had my forestry and park supervisor, tree warden with us. I believe a couple of the trees we actually want to remove completely, because we're concerned with the condition they're in. So I think we got a good plan for that on what we're going to end up with at the end.
Very good. Thank you, thank you.
Ready for a motion?
Yes, please.
I mean, I move we approve approval of that memo or
The permit.
the permit. Approve the permit, but I would just add just a condition that take, reasonable efforts to screen, the finished product from view with, some sort of shrubbery and so forth, and work it out to Mr. Stinson's satisfaction, but that would be the only thing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank
Thanks.
you very much. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you, Rick. We'll move on to action item 4C, which is the drainage study presentation.
I move we skip this.
You see anything on your computer about this?
Oh, we all got it, you don't have it.
Oh, I don't have it.
And if you just, once seated, if you could please introduce yourselves,
Is
that
it
would
on
be
there?
great.
Am I missing?
I think you really get it right now.
But it's not on here, thank you.
I have it. She has it. That's
Yeah.
it.
I deal with people like you all day.
Good evening, thank
Hi,
you.
Rick.
He's bad.
Here is we're going to provide you with a presentation of the drainage study that we've been working on. Back a couple years ago, we received funding for the townwide drainage study. And we've had a lot of bumps in the road as we went along. We found out a lot of things we thought we had that we didn't. And we found some things we had that we didn't know we had. So there were some pluses and minuses. The report is right here, which is not final. It will be, I have a few more comments to make, but it will be this week. We'll provide those comments back. But we contracted with Wright Pierce engineering firm, and I have with me Peter Atherton on the end, who is Senior Vice President, Ryan Wingard, who is an associate, and Paul Brinkman, who is a senior associate. They've been working on the report with myself and my engineering staff to come up with a game plan. The last thing I will say, and then I'm going to turn it over to them, there is $54 million worth of improvements in this book. I think I mentioned that to you when I did the budget. And a lot of improvements that are outside those major areas that would add up to quite a bit. So with that, I'll turn it over to Paul. There you go.
It's largely going to be me.
Okay.
Good evening. Pleasure to be here tonight. It took us a while to get to this point, and we appreciate your patience. There's very complex issues going on, and to really boil them down and kind of understand them took some effort. So in terms of just the overall, I'm going to kind of talk about the problem. Why are you having these problems? Kind of how we went about the study, how we analyzed the issues that we found, and then what were the improvements that we recognize that need to be made. And I have to say at the start is that the town under Rick has been doing an excellent job at maintaining it where it is now. A lot of this stuff has taken years and years and years to kind of build up, and that's really what we found. And so keeping the status quo is really hard, even with Rick's efforts. So as a general overall, I want to just identify the drainage system, because people talk about drainage. What are all the things that go into it? And the term MS4 comes up, and you may have heard of this term, or you will be hearing about it a lot. It's Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. And it is your roads, the curbs, the catch basins, manholes, pipes. It's all these pieces, leading all the way down to the rivers, streams, lakes, and ponds. And when you talk about an MS4, you worry about the quality of the water, what's in that water, the pollution, the quantity. And the focus of our efforts was on the quantity side. You probably have had other things going on looking at quality, and that will become very important in the very near future. So one of the key facts that we found was that development really is what caused this, is that as the town built out, and not just that town, but the towns around you built out, they changed the way that the system works, and the way that the water hits the ground and runs off into the curbs and the manholes and the streams and everything. So I found this interesting. I found a map of Wakefield from 1950, a USGS map, and if you notice, there's a lot of those little wetland features. They look like little blue grass tufts. And if you look at them, they're all over town, and that kind of indicates that historically the town had a lot of this going on. Now, if we go to the next page, this is a up-to-date ortho photo, and I have all these circles. It's a little hard to see on that screen, but if you look at the circles on the map, if you compare them to the prior picture from 1950, all those orange circles are places where there was water or wetlands at some point, and now They put up houses and driveways and a lot of surface that changes the way that the stormwater operates. The big orange, big pink circle over to the left side of the paper is in Reading, but that influences the flows from that area, comes into your system and influences what's going on in Wakefield. So what this boils down to is what's called impervious cover. And so EPA has looked at this and they said, this is how much impervious cover is in each of the towns. I've listed some of the nearby towns. In Wakefield, 30% of the ground is basically the water hits it and it runs off. It wants to go somewhere else. And so that prevents it from leaching into the ground and slowing down. And so as this water hits the ground, it wants to go, it goes much faster than it would ordinarily. Another factor that's been going on is climate change, and that especially in the New England Northeast region, we're seeing much more intense storms than we did historically, and the volume of rainfall and the intensity, how fast it comes down is increasing. And so that is influencing this problem as well. So as we've been adding impervious area, we've also been having worse storms. Other things that go into your system, and I call them influences, you don't have entire control over your system. You have the other towns that flow in, you have the town that you flow out to in Saugus. You have Mass DOT, they have the highway that runs through and they operate a drainage system that interacts with yours. There's a lot of folks on this list and they all have some influence on the way that your system operates. So it's very complicated to come up with solutions because you have to get all these folks in agreement to be able to do that. So initially, the town had identified 16 problem areas. And so the stars are little. I blew them up. They appear much larger than the problems are, but there are several in the town that we found. And what we did is we went out and we verified whether or not they were problems, because a lot of this was anecdotal. It was just somebody along the way complained, or like on New Salem Street, just about every 1 inch rain, there's a problem down there. So, we went out and we looked at all of those. And as a result, we ended up creating a model, a hydraulic model. So we did a lot of field work. We spent 4 weeks walking around, taking measurements, taking elevations, looking at the whole system, how it interacts, how it operates. And the photo on the larger one here is basically a blow-up of the electronic model. We went in and used a computer to translate what's happening on the ground into a computerized model that tells us we can put certain storms in it, and then look at how those storms occur and look at what happens, how does it fail, and then we can turn around and put things into it to see how we can repair it or make it less. And so the model also provides you some benefits, because you can use this model down the road to identify how development might impact your stormwater system, or how improvements, where you could take a development and say, all right, we want you to look at this a little bit differently. We want you to manage your stormwater better, and show how that makes your system react better. It also allowed us to look at what we termed an operation and maintenance plan, because there are places in your system where you have a little bit of control, where you can manage the way that the water runs through. You have that large lake on a pallet, and so you can manage the way the water comes out of that and make it react less with your system so it doesn't negatively influence flow. So I'm going to go through an example of one of the problem areas, and this photo is a screenshot of what the computer actually puts out, and it's a profile of the pipe system. And in this, we're showing at the top end is the problem area. That's Ware Street, where there's very persistent flooding acknowledged by some people in that area. And so we went out, we captured all this information, we put it in our model, and we ran different storms through it. And in that process, we were able to say, okay, we're seeing a problem here. What's causing this problem? And then from that problem, what are the things that we might be able to do to resolve it? So we looked at a bunch of different scenarios. Go ahead.
Mind if I just, what are we looking at there? So I see it's about a half a mile left to right. I
Yep.
see elevation on the left. I'm not sure exactly what, I have a link, a node, a head, and I see ground level, so.
It's a
Just
mixture
curious,
of, it's a
if-
mixture of the pipes and the open channels as it flows from Ware Street out to Melrose.
As
That
water
section
flows?
connects- And that shows how the water runs through the system. So you'll see the red line is basically the energy in that, and that's how high the water would be in that area, along that system. So it tells us how high the system is getting and what kind of levels of flooding or what kind of elevation the water would be in that area.
So is the flood then, if green is ground and?
Yes,
is-
that demonstrates that the system is full at that point, and it is
So
flooded.
is the bad place at that 800 to 1,000 foot mark?
It's actually at the very, it's a little bit farther up from there.
1,200 to 1,400?
Yeah.
Here, you tell us
Yep.
instead of us
It's
guessing.
it's at the 400-foot area there. So you see there's a dip down,
Yeah.
and there's a bit of an open channel, and it goes through a pipe.
Oh, I see where the
The
ground,
ground level
Yeah.
goes way down, yeah.
okay. Because I see over to the right where the ground is below what you've got is the, oh, I guess it's not, maybe it's just above it. Okay, all right, that's the
So
problem.
it's in that location there.
Got it.
So the different alternatives that we came up when looking, and it's not as dramatic. The model is calculating, it's giving us all kinds of numbers that tells us how much the volume of water is occurring there. That just tells us where it's happening. It doesn't tell us the magnitude or how bad. So in that particular scenario, we looked at, can we change the pipe size? Can we put in storage to capture all this volume and put it somewhere else temporarily? Can we do can we store it a little bit upstream before it gets to that point? Or what the last thing we looked at is typically a flood proofing. Is there a way to kind of protect who's ever being impacted? And in this case, if we increase the pipe size, we send the problem somewhere else. So we're not, so this, in our estimation, the system's fairly balanced right now. The problem is throughout that system, and if we were to go, all right, we'll increase it, it's just gonna push it into somebody else's area, which doesn't make sense at this point. Storage, the volumes were very, very large. We were looking at numbers in the $25 to $40 million range to mitigate that amount of that flooding in that area, which to us didn't seem to warrant, the balance to do that didn't seem to make sense. And we're at the upstream area of that watershed, so there's really not much control we can do because there's not a lot of water flowing in from that point. So we're really kind of limited to flood proofing. And so I have some photos of potential flood proofing alternatives. The upper right is not so much flood proofing as
Well, it could be.
it is flood proofing that house by finding it in a location that it's not. But
Right.
and this is stuff that's done, not commonly, but it is done to prevent damage to houses. If people still want to be in that location, you lift them on stilts, or the lower left is they put up a wall around the house and basically protected it. And the one on the lower right is more of a berm or a dike or something like that. That's a little harder to implement because when you do that, you have to find another place to make up for the storage that you took away when you do that. Because they want the system to be as balanced as possible when you're doing that. This is one of the areas that there really wasn't a good fix, and we had, of the 16 problem areas, we had one other that we were in a similar situation where, because we're limited on how much we can let out of town, we're limited on how much we can control in that area, so changing anything in that system would make it worse for somebody else. Another key thing that we found, and this is something that's historical, is sediment and debris, and you can see in that photo the sand and stuff that's been set up, and this is stuff going way back. The town is doing a great job of managing that right now, but it's persistent in the system, and it's been created over 50, 100 years. So what happens in this case is if you look at the first profile I created, the water's down in the bed. Now we fill that with sand. Well, the water needs to push up, so now there isn't room for it, and it sits on the edges of the banks, and now it's causing flooding for people. And it floods much quicker. So some of the things that the DPW has been doing so far to control this and doing a great job, Under winter operations, a lot of towns will use a lot of sand, and so does Mass DOT, and then Rick focuses on using as little as possible because he knows that that sand's gonna end up in the catch basins, it's gonna end up in the streams. Very diligent about street sweeping. I was surprised when we were talking to him about how much street sweeping is being done in the community. And catch basin cleaning, he's doing a good job of keeping up with that. Yard waste management, a lot of the brooks and streams run in people's backyards, and people have a tendency to wanna fill the stream with debris, and the town is very proactive about making it available for folks, so that really helps the situation in town. And they're also using Eastern Middlesex mosquito control. The limitation with them is they're just removing the little pools, and they don't actually take the debris and take it out of the system. They just put it up on the side, so it can end up back in the stream again, so it doesn't really solve the problem in a significant fashion. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yep.
What do they do?
They-
So when
they-
you say,
they
I
go
think
on the
mosquito
stream.
control, I think spraying or something, right?
They actually are looking for the pools that get set up in the stream when it starts to get dry, when the flow goes down. So they'll open up the channel and they'll remove some of the debris, but they place it just next to the channel. So they don't actually kind of clean it up, they'll just allow the water to move.
Where do they go to do this? They patrol every stream in the town, or?
No,
they-
we'll contract, we pay them, we'll
Yeah.
contract with them in
Right.
areas. The benefit of using them is that they will put a channel as much as they can back to its original shape. They benefit to us by using them is we don't have to go through all the permitting with DEP or EPA or Army Corps. On the other hand, they can't go deeper than what that channel is. They can't make the channel wider, they can't
Right, right.
deepen it,
That
or
makes
any of that
sense.
stuff. Okay? So it's a way to solve some problems quickly. We can come up with a quick list and then we're down to do that.
And how many, however you want to measure it, how many miles, square yards, or whatever, you know? Is it 5 spots in the town that are, where there's water near neighborhoods or something, or is it?
You know, we probably try to do a mile a year, but it also, it's been some years where we didn't get that drainage money that we put in to the capital outlay plan is used to fix pipes, but also to do the mosquito control. So it all depends on a balancing thing on how much we can do. I can't say there's a set amount that we do every year.
Yeah, okay.
There should be, but.
Yeah, I'm just curious, I mean, I have no idea if it's, you know, they do 10 miles of stuff or
Yeah,
10
no,
feet.
it's not that
Yeah,
much.
okay. All right.
So, as part of our plan, we wanted to create a balanced plan, because right now, the situation is causing flooding, so how can we improve it? But we had some rules we had to live by, because we can't tell anybody else how to run their system. So we have to accept the flow that comes into the town, so Reading and Stoneham and Linfield, they're all influencing these systems. You have to kind of leave them status quo. We can't send it to Saugus any quicker, because it's gonna flood. And actually, when we looked at that balance, what happens in a rainstorm is it stores in Wakefield, which makes sense. You feel, you know, all the streams fill up and you get the flooding, but that's what's happening. So what we have to do is try to balance that out so that we can get the water out early in a storm and retain it a little bit better late in the storm, and that'll help balance that peak that happens during the storm. So we have to do that. We wanted to make sure that we didn't make an improvement that would cause a problem for somebody else. So we can't, you know, fix one person's problem and make a new one somewhere else. And those were the rules that we lived by as we went through. So we came up with a capital improvement plan with a fairly large dollar amount. You know, hopefully the town can start to pick away at these, because they will provide benefit. They're not gonna stop it completely, because you have a lot of factors working against you, and it took you a lot of years to get to this point. So it's gonna take you probably as many years to flip that around, but you take slow, steady steps and you'll get there eventually. So some of the more quicker hitting type things that can happen right now is we identified some enhancements to the existing O&M. So looking at the street sweeping, tuning the catch basin program just a little bit so that we're getting the worst places. Because as we were out, we would find one occasionally where it might make sense to hit that one more often and another area maybe not so much. Look at the pipelines, that's one thing that I'm sure the town's been looking at the sewer system pretty rigorously because people are worried about it. But the storm drain system, most people haven't been worried about as rigorously. So it would be good to get out and take a look at what's happening in those pipes, because where we looked at them, sometimes we found them with problems. They're starting to collapse, and you've had money come up where you needed to spend money on a culvert or something like that. And another thing is identifying someone to kind of be the champion of the stormwater system, a stormwater manager that can kind of, he's worrying about all these aspects. He's making sure the balance is happening and that things are moving forward every year. And then a few other things more kind of programmatic, or when you're doing road work, when you do road work, the roads are already impervious, but maybe you can tune them a little bit to make them a little less impervious. So one of the things that some communities are doing, there's a photo here of a tree box filter where they allow the water to go into this tree, and it's basically a pit that the water can run into. There's soil and stone and whatnot. And that allows some of that to leach into the ground as opposed to run off. And there's a lot of different things that can go into that, a lot of different ways to do that. That's one example. And then the last one is consider a stormwater utility, which a lot of communities are, not keen on it. People call it the rain tax. Should we tax people for rain? But that's one way to generate the funds to enable you to make the improvements. So I don't know if anyone has any further questions. I know I've gone on a little bit long.
Brian?
What's the, you said all the water pools in Wakefield before it goes to another town, and so I forget what I know there's lots of restrictions on what we can do as far as pushing the flow through to the next town and creating their problem, and also on blocking water from coming into our town from Reading, for example, or something. So did you guys look at their behaviors on either side, on our neighbors' behaviors with respect to, are they doing the right thing by allowing the right amounts of water to flow at whatever the right times are into their towns and through their towns, or is anybody cheating the system a little and backing stuff up in our town, or dumping too much onto us?
To the extent that they have control, no, they're not doing that. I mean, we did find areas where there was debris or other things that that are influencing the flow out of the town at the Saugus line, and we talked to Saugus, and they said, okay, we'll help clean that up. So that's holding it up a little bit, and that's in one of the projects we have here. It's related to that. In terms of what's coming in, we spoke with both Reading and Linfield, and they're managing it as you are. They're not going out of their way to make it worse. They're not retaining it either, because if they retain it, they cause flooding for themselves.
Yeah.
There's a lot of areas of town that were historically held water that aren't holding water as well as they should. Reedy Meadow is one of the large places, and that system has been studied over a few times over the years. But it is an essential part of your stormwater system, and right now it's not operating really well.
Isn't the Saugus River ultimately controlled by somebody further down in the other end of Saugus or beyond? Somewhere somebody, I remember in probably through my zoning board days, somewhere somebody's got the switch and they can turn it on or off and back the whole damn thing up right to Wakefield or not. So anybody?
Not so much down there at the Colonial Dam.
Yeah.
The Lynn Water and Sewer Commission, their water source is there. So they take a slice of it off and they feed a reservoir in Saugus, Hawks Pond. And when that gets filled, they shut that off. So sometimes that may be influencing, but the volume that they're taking.
So if there's a big storm, though, they probably shut that off because it fills up.
A long, sustained storm, they may shut that off.
And then the water needs to find places to go because they shut off a place for it to go. And
the volume that they're taking, though, typically is
not enough to matter.
Considerably less than what's causing the storms.
Okay.
It's still.
I'm glad you looked. I just was curious because it came up a couple times. So, okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Paul, did I cut you off?
Go ahead.
I had that star, just what you were talking about. I would hope that the other communities would be as very polite, I guess, for lack of a better word, and treat us as we are treating them. It's not every man for himself, because the whole thing is a domino situation. We've got to work together with these people, and I cannot imagine trying to get these 16 groups to agree on anything when I look at them, because each one has a certain something within their bailiwick in their wheelhouse that they're gonna fight for, which may come in conflict with something else in the laws in the state and everything else combined. But I think it's a wonderful idea, not a wonderful idea, it's a good solution that you've presented to us, but it's not gonna happen overnight, and I hope the people out that may or may not be listening realize that this is not gonna happen overnight. And, we can only deal with nature up to a certain point, and I think everyone has to realize that as well. But I think this was a great presentation. It really was clear cut, it was right to the point. And as I say, I asterisk that no improvements at the expense of others, and I would hope there's reciprocity there from our neighbors, because we're all in this together, like it or not, And any more federal money out there, Ricky? Any state money, anything more?
When you get done, I have like 5 comments I wanted to
Oh,
make
good,
about that.
okay,
so.
yeah.
So, if you look at the star in W05, the north of W05 in your plan, that's my house. So all water from Wakefield flows by my house. It has since 1996, when I was flooded out the first time. Okay, this plan doesn't do anything to alleviate that. It won't, because we can't let it go into Saugus any faster or any greater in volume. So we take all of Walker Brook, comes into Wakefield, everything from Linfield comes into Wakefield, everything from Saugus comes into Wakefield. It all backs up between the Wakefield line and Route 1, okay? Hog Pond fills, the water table rises, water flow going from the Saugus River and Mill River comes to a complete stop. It backs up. My house floods, Water Street floods, New Salem Street floods, Peony Boulevard floods, Gould Street floods. How is this plan going to correct that? What is this plan going to do that's any different than the 1992 plan that they did for Reedy Meadow? How is this going to do any repair if we can't do the work in the rivers to make the water flow?
Well, ultimately, that's what's required, and that's what a lot of our improvements are related to those efforts. They will, again, will they stop all flooding? They can't stop all flooding because we're having worse storms and we're having, there's so many influences. The systems weren't designed to handle what's on the ground today. But
Right.
If they're done, they will mitigate it, they will reduce the frequency that they occur at.
100-year storm is a throw-out term now. 25-year storms is what we have to worry about, at least I do.
Yep.
Okay, if you get 4 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, I'm underwater. Okay, many inches of water. So, and I've been waiting patiently for this town to do something to alleviate that, and it hasn't happened.
Well, if I can, I think, as a board, you actually took the first step when I presented the budget to you, because we have a stormwater manager in there. And what will that do? I talked about some of them with the stormwater permit for quality, but it also impacts this, because that position will be key to getting grants, working with other communities, and working on studies so we can move this along. Before, we've always been trying to do it piecemeal, and it just doesn't work. I mean, so that position that you included in the budget is key to addressing this along with a lot of other areas. So it helps, that'll be a big plus.
Yeah, Brian.
I'm just curious what the, you have this summary of the capital improvement plan. It just talks about the location and the dollar amount. Just what do those entail, especially the two, there's 3 of them that are, I'm gonna call them all $12 million. I mean, those are the big boys up there. What are the Mill River improvements? Is that a host of things that you've outlined? or-
That one is largely reclaiming the Mill River to its original depth and length. And it's a,
Are you talking the entire length? Excuse me, I don't mean
It's-
to jump in on you. Is that, you talking from Salem Street, Lowell Street, all the way to Saugus line?
no, we picked up, because there's a major influent location, the Wakefield Brook conduit.
Right.
It comes in at, what street does it come on?
Salem.
Near Water Street, near Water
Okay,
Street.
yeah.
So from Water Street extending down into Saugus.
Okay.
For some length, because we looked at the bed of the river well into Saugus, and that, we have an opportunity to lower it back to its original condition by removing the debris. And then that would allow, that figure where, we showed the water down in the channel.
Yes.
There's not so much channel in there. You probably know, you look at it, you go,
I
where's
do
the
know.
channel? Because you get a little bit of rain and the thing pops.
Mm-hmm.
So if we able to develop a channel again, what'll happen is, you see that big peak that happens in the storm, we can start to have that peak sink down a little bit, because the water at the beginning of the storm won't be backing up, it'll be running
Becomes a
under the
storage
channel.
area again. In essence, it becomes a storage area again,
Somewhat, yes.
somewhat, because you're bringing it back
Correct.
down to hold a
And
larger
it'll
capacity.
allow it to
It'll
run
run
much
cleaner,
better.
faster. What about the Saugus River one, A3, same thing?
That one's similar, yeah.
So it's all about,
There's a couple other tweaks to that one, because at the top end, the Mill River was never supposed to have all the flow that it has in it. And that as Reedy Meadow became degraded, animal activity, other things happened, the elevation of the water came up, and so now it runs through that railway trestle where it didn't originally go that way. It originally went down the Saugus River. So there's, a need to get it back down the Saugus River normally, and that way could recover some of the storage in Reedy Meadow.
and how about the Foundry Street, Galvin Middle School area, that one?
That's a parallel pipe system. That's a fairly significant pipe system, and that's a phase B, because we need to do the A work first, because if we do B work first, we'll make A areas a problem. So there's a very specific order that this stuff has to take place in.
Is that work we coulda, shoulda done when we built Galvin, or is it away from the?
We did part of it. We
Did part of
replaced
it?
the culvert and
Yeah.
took out all the openings where stuff could go under the school. So it's still under the school,
Mhm.
but it's not gonna encroach into the school.
Okay,
This is the one for, that drains, Gould
It
Street.
comes
The
out
Gould-
of,
This is the one that drains the Gould Street area. It's the one that where Lake
Lake Street, but it also takes the overflow from Crystal Lake.
Yes. But when it I thought that goes into the Mill River.
No, it goes, it does, but what it does is it goes through the DPW yard in a culvert, and then it goes under the Galvin, and then it flows down and under 27 Water Street Garage, and then from there, it will head towards the Mill River.
Right, okay. How about Strong Meadow? Doesn't it go into this? No?
Don't think so.
Okay.
okay, just, so you've got it phased, A1 through 4. What's the time frame if we decided to do something like that? Is that 6 months of work, each one of those, or 3 months?
Very, very significant upfront efforts permitting them, just because it's very difficult to just go in and say, I want to reclaim this.
Okay,
So that there's a whole long period to do that upfront, and then to actually do the work, probably not as significant, 6 months maybe, but
Okay.
a year or two.
and does the $12 million, I'll call it, in the Mill River one, does that include the permitting efforts and all that is all baked into that budget?
We tried to put some understanding of that effort, but until you actually get into it, and the Army Corps has a very high involvement in those activities, so they get to direct what happens, and you can't necessarily predict it exactly.
Okay.
The permitting typically isn't gonna change the huge amount of money that it takes to actually do the work. A lot of the money here is just managing that soil that comes out, because there's stuff in it, and you can't just take it and, put it in a park or something like that. You gotta find a place to take this stuff who wants it. It's not a lot, but there's just enough stuff there that the state says you have to handle it a little differently than other.
Can't you just
other
put it in the
soil.
storm drains slowly?
Start all over.
Start all over.
All right, that's, I mean, I always find it interesting. So we're sitting here and we've said we have a problem, so we commissioned a study to go take a look at it, and you've come back and said, here's how you can fix your problem. There's 12 steps, and interestingly, and what are we going to do about it? I guess it's on us now to decide. Is that it? Is it up to this board
Well,
ultimately to kind of figure out whether we want to advance? I'm sure there's more steps in your involvement, not just literally us people sitting here, but at some point we have to take the leadership role of saying, you know what, this is the right thing to do for the town for the long term, and we want to advance the idea of investing. That's $26 million for phase 1. You know, how do we get to the point where we actually did something about it instead of just talk about it?
I think we need to internally look at those four. And when we do that, we're looking at the permitting aspect, what we have to do. We're also looking at the grant aspect, what's out there, and what can we obtain for grants, because I think that's key. I mean, I don't think we have $54 million. If you do, I'll be glad to take it, but I don't think it's sitting there to give me.
But phase one's only 26 million, not that that's, nothing, but it's less, and maybe there's ways to do this stuff more cheaply, or maybe there's grants, and maybe that becomes a $15 million issue, which, I know people have, trust me, it's hard to get over the number and see the long-term value and how right it is to do something like this. But if it is, we should really take a hard look at it. I know it's hard to ask people for money and to spend it and all that, but at some point, generationally, I think people in the town have to look at some of these hard, unfun, unseen things that go on in the woods, literally, and say, this is the right thing to do for the town, and it will improve a lot of people's property values in the process, and probably solve a problem before it gets worse. So
And once we get into looking at the permits and we look at the grants, then we would come back here and say, here's what we need to fix this, here's what we can get either from grants, or we're not gonna get from grants, and bring that back here to move forward.
Can I ask you just one question? Sure. I'm always into grants and getting, let's get the money. It's our tax money. We might as well bring it back into this community. Would there ever be such a thing as a regional grant that we could work with these communities? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, well, I'll take the Saugus River and talk about that. A study began, and it's a little different than the Mill River, because it is the Saugus River. It comes out of Reedy Meadow, which becomes Lynn's drinking water supply at the end. But that study began in 1992. And some communities participated, some did not in the process. And the project would speed up and go forward when there was funding to fund the studies, and then it would drop off. It's dropped off for quite a while. When we last looked at it, we were talking about the fish study that was needed, and how the fish come up the river. And there was no funding available to do that study. And then some people retired from different communities, and so that kind of set it back a little bit. Hopefully this will get it going again, and we can look at that. We were at the Army Corps with that project, and they were willing to participate in that project. So we had a commitment from them. Now, that was quite a while ago that happened, so it would really be kind of going back over a lot of stuff. A lot of the study stuff is still good, but how much is needed to finish that, and whether communities would participate, and you have Linfield, you have Saugus, you have Lynn Water and Sewer Commission are all part of that, Wakefield, is a question.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking of regionally, our congressmen, our reps, get the reps to work together.
Right.
Get a big chunk of change and get it in there. Whatever.
I was going to say, interestingly enough, I had a meeting with Seth Moulton's office today, and drainage was part of the discussion. And I told him, we have this study being presented tonight. And we need their help in two areas. Number one is the funding. But number two is coordinating and working with these different communities, because at the end of the day, Wakefield does not have a direct track to the sea.
Right.
And so we need the cooperation of Saugus and Linfield, because what is it, about 80% goes down the Mill River in Wakefield, close to 80?
Probably more.
Probably more,
what,
okay?
90?
So they were very interested in working with us, not only on the funding mechanism, but also in the coordination with our fellow
Good,
communities. So
yeah.
it was a nice meeting, and we'll be setting up more with their office. So I do appreciate, and I appreciate your work. I appreciate the work you did on the culvert, under the Galvin, and nice, great job, Rick. Thank you very much for your support on this.
Sounds like we need a toll booth around the lake.
If I can, I had a couple comments to add. The report did, probably in any town, the worst system that you have information on is the drainage system. We have great information on the water system, the sewer system. Drainage pipes were put in years ago and just stuck in places. They might be the right size, they might not be the right size. And on top of it, our system was built for 2 to 5 year storm
At the best.
at the best. And so, you know, what you're seeing is we should be at least a 25-year storm. That's never gonna happen. It's impossible to change that probably at this point. But it gives us a better understanding of the system. The modeling component, which is key when people or businesses or citizens go before the ZBA or the planning board, we need them to look at those areas and take and utilize the modeling part that we can run to say, what impact is that gonna have? How can we make an improvement there? And we're continuing to do mapping of the system. That's gonna continue on. So the more mapping we get done, the better information we're gonna have, the better the model's gonna be. But the board, all the boards in town play a key role. When someone comes in to present something, a real hard discussion needs to be on drainage, and now we have the ability to provide that.
Can I add something to that? I agree with that. I don't know that our boards have the teeth legally and from a regulatory standpoint to do much about it. I mean, I think if I remember from my special permit days, the standard is it won't create some undue impact on drainage. So what does undue mean? It's, that's a pretty high standard that we know, building a project, cutting down trees, doing whatever is going to have an impact. Is it undue? Does it rise to some level that on appeal would hold up? So maybe we need to tweak our rules and say things have to have a positive impact, because every developer can go out and find, you guys are going to have to do little earmuffs on this, somebody that will write a study for them that says this project's going to have minimal impact, or the typical one is this place is already a disaster, so by building this, it's not going to make it any worse, right? That's the classic one. And you sit there and you're like, you know what, good point, go ahead. And maybe we need to change our rules that the answer is no by law, tie the hands of the people who are making the decision. You can't even say yes to this unless you're convinced and satisfied, and make a finding that the resulting project will improve drainage somehow. And maybe then we can kind of piece by piece improve things without us spending any money, but just putting a better control on the development in town. So, I mean, it's not lost to me at the beginning that we're one of the highest in the calculation of impervious land. I mean, we are just built everywhere. And I know we're trying to shoehorn new projects into every available corner of the town, and none of that helps. So maybe the new standard based on our current density and just how much impervious cover we already have in our land, that maybe we have to flip the model to the other way. If you're not helping the situation, then you're not building here. So I don't know how we do that, but Steve, can you just get that done? So.
That's what I'm here for.
No, but I mean, it needs a bylaw change, and it's something we should talk about. Maybe, I'm not sure if that's legal, if it amounts to a taking at some point, if it becomes too onerous, but at some point we should really consider altering that, or at least giving our boards the teeth.
I'll just offer, that was a deeper recommendation in here to update that, and there are communities, Cambridge, Somerville's looking at it now, that are taking that approach where if you're making even an addition to your house, you have to mitigate that addition enough so that you're improving, as you said, so that the runoff gets better. So that, because it's fairly low dollar for someone to do it when they're doing some work anyway.
Right.
And so you just kind of add that to a project, and when you're looking at wholesale redevelopment, it's a disaster now, well, let's make it a win for the community at the same time.
Right.
As opposed to, all right, I guess a disaster to a disaster.
It's certainly not an undue impact. It's like, well, it's terrible now, it'll be terrible when their project's done. Oh, well, that's the law, right? That's the standard.
It's fairly common for communities that are asking for that now, just so that they are turning this around, so that they're.
If you have samples of what that looks like, if somebody has it codified in a bylaw or wherever it is, I'll read it, send them to me, send them to this board, so it'd be great.
Can that change be made to the subdivision rules, maybe yours? In the wording, right now, it's no net gain, no net runoff. Can they change it to make it a little bit more restrictive than that?
You know, in subdivision, and I'm not sure that that's the hot area in the future, because most of this development work is done through the ZBA, not the planning board
That's
now.
right now.
But in subdivision control, the big choke point is the Board of Health, because the Board of Health, in every case, has to issue a report on drainage. So the Board of Health might revise its own drainage regulations.
They can, and actually, they become the teeth.
Yeah, and it's almost impossible for anybody successfully to challenge Board of Health regulations. The degree of
That's true.
deference is enormous.
That's true, thank you.
Yes, Phil.
Excuse me, I might not be all that knowledgeable about what's going on here, but there's a couple of questions I'd like to ask. And the reason I'm asking this question is because Selectman Falvey, it sounded like you said, let's just bite the bullet and get the money and do it. Did I misunderstand that?
Not so much, just let's look at taking the next step. And
Okay, and
I don't know how much it'll cost
what I
you.
want to know is, what is more important? Is this one of the most important things that we have to do compared to what else is needed in this town? How important is it that we have to do this? It's millions of dollars. Can anybody answer that for me?
Well, I'll take a stab at it.
There you go, Rick, tag.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's important, like anything in town, whatever it is important to a particular person. So people who are getting flooded and continually get flooded, this is their highest priority item, and no one thinks about it until it rains.
Okay.
People who
Go ahead, Jim.
use the school system, that's their highest priority. Other people use other things, that's their highest priority. So it's a priority, but
Well, we should make a decision, because this is how I feel. Like Selectman Salvey said, $26 million. If that's the thing that we should do, and it has to be done, and it would stop the flooding, we have to stop to think about not spending millions of dollars on other things. I'm bringing the school back into this. Why should we go out looking for $126 million for a new school if the school can be maintained, taken care of, repaired, and we take the money that we would ask for the school and do it for the drainage and take care of whatever has to be done in the town? There has to be a priority. What is the most important thing that we have to do?
Who decides what the priority is? I think, for these things, I think that's why we take it to town votes, right? The town decides.
There is nothing worse than being flooded out, having happened to me once. Really, there is nothing worse.
There is absolutely nothing
Just
worse.
shoot myself. Oh.
Madam Chairman, one last thing for me?
Sure.
I want to thank you for a fabulous presentation. Good job. You have my full support.
thank you. And when this is finalized,
Shocker.
the town administrator will have a copy in his office. There'll be one in Public Works. Each zoning board and planning board will get a copy to refer to, along with Board of Health and Conservation. And I'm gonna have some flash drives made up, so if you actually really want to read through
sure.
this,
Yeah.
I'll be glad to give
Yeah.
you one, and
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
good sleeping material.
Send it.
Send it
Presenting
off.
a complicated issue very clearly on that
Right.
presentation.
It was excellent.
Really excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
it was good.
Thank you.
So,
Good night, gentlemen.
Hear from you
Thanks.
again. Thanks, Rick. Okay. Action item 4E, we have a request from the West Side Social Club 4th of July Committee to use the Upper and Lower Commons to hold the annual 4th of July celebration beginning at 6 a.m. on Sunday, July 3rd, Tuesday, July 5th at 6 p.m., 2016.
So moved.
I'm going to read a letter, hold on,
Sorry.
from Carol Hubbard, who is a member of the West Side Social Club 4th of July Committee. Dear Mr. Mayo and Wakefield Board of Selectmen, I'm writing on behalf of the West Side Social Club 4th of July Committee to request the use of the Upper and Lower Commons to hold our annual 4th of July celebration. We request the Commons beginning at 6 a.m. on Sunday, the time I just read, through 6 a.m. July 5th. The actual events will be held on Monday, July 4th, beginning at 7 a.m., ending at approximately 10:30 p.m. The major part of our fundraising to pay for the day-long events is our food concessions. For decades, we've been granted exclusive use of both the Upper and Lower Commons. In the past, we have only used the Lower Common for our food concession because the DPW requested us to refrain from selling food on the Upper Common. We are hopeful that we will resume the usage of both commons as we have for the past several years to avoid a direct conflict with our fundraising necessities. Once again, Mr. Mayo, I wish to thank you and the Board of Selectmen for your continued support to our 4th of July program. It is greatly appreciated, from Carol Hubbard. And I'm going to send it over to Steve, but I also just want to say, sometimes we get caught up in what a great job Patrick Sullivan did on the parade, and there's no doubt that he did a great job on the parade. But the West Side Social Club has also supported events surrounding the parade for easily 40 years, where they've done the fireworks and they've done the children's events in the morning. And I think they have been a little forgotten, even by us, when we were thanking Patrick for his work, that the West Side Social Club has been integral in such a big part in our 4th of July celebration. So I just wanted to mention that because I know they work so hard and they care so deeply about this town. Steve.
I just want to say how lucky we are as a community to have these groups putting this event forward. There's a town not too far from us that is going through all sorts of problems, even getting their 4th of July parade off the ground, that they're not allowing a carnival, and the Board of Appeals is getting involved, and it's a crazy issue there. So I think we're very lucky that we have these two groups. West Side Social Club has been fabulous over the years. I can remember as a young kid running in the races, never winning. I think my sister won one year, and that was a great source of issue in the Mayo household. And I took my kids there, and I look forward to taking my grandchild there shortly, maybe this year in the diaper derby. But in any event, I have met with Carol Hubbard at the West Side Social Club. As I mentioned this board last week, is that both of these groups need to do their work. I would like to have this board's authority to arrange their areas so they can make this work well together. I have impressed upon both groups that they need to get together in the future and make this a little bit easier for all of us. But Carol in particular has been great to work with. In fact, I spent about a half hour with her today, so I think we can move forward. I'll work with the DPW director and Dennis Fazio to make sure these are all in areas that, A, respect the World War II memorial, and B, move them towards their areas. So.
Do you want to, motion to authorize Steve to work with the group and come up with a solution?
I think if you approve it, I'll make it work.
Yes, I hope so.
we
So
need to
moved.
approve the request from the West Side Social Club as read.
Right.
I'll second that.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Next is the approval of the annual town election and annual town meeting warrant.
Yes, in your packet, Madam Chair, is the combination of the two warrants, and we do combine them, A, because we can, and B, because we actually save money in doing this in the newspaper. So in front of you is the election warrant, which will be held on April 26th, combined with the annual town meeting, which will be held on May 2nd. There are 20 articles, all of which have been either approved or referred by this board or accepted by this board to previous areas. I can certainly go through them if they want. They are the normal budget, capital outlay, the debt service one, we pay the bonds, the money from the municipal gas and light, the supervisor's contract that I will mention next as we go around, the two feasibility studies, one for the public safety building and one for the Waltham School. The money for the Medicaid reimbursement, the fire department supplement, the workers' comp supplement, and then we have all the normal DPW articles, the easements, the trash one, NEPD's program, roadway improvements, sidewalk improvements, the rental of the area behind 364 Main, the water surplus for the water treatment plant, a betterment on Mount Pleasant Ave and Everett Street, the building fees that we talked about, and the zoning article on North Ave. These have all been previously approved by the board. There were no others submitted in the time frame. So
Okay.
with this approval, we will post this in the item Thursday or Friday of this week.
Great.
Okay.
Excellent.
What's the North Ave zoning change again?
That is an area on North Ave that has been actually recommended by the planning board. It's in 592 North Ave. It's an area kind of between where that new apartment building is going and the Knights of Columbus, that everything else there is zoned business and that's zoned single residence, so they want to change that to business.
Oh, okay.
The one across from Wakefield.
Yeah.
That's a private citizen's article. So,
So we need a motion to
approve, yeah.
approve the annual town election and annual town meeting warrant as listed.
So moved.
Moved by Paul.
Second.
Second by Phyllis, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
So supervisor's contract?
Supervisor's contract, yes. As the board may recall, at last May town meeting, we settled all of the contracts on the municipal side, and they all were for 3 years, with the exception of the supervisor's contract, which was a one-year contract. And that was a one-year contract to allow us to complete a study on the job descriptions and classifications there, much like we did with the clerical union a couple of years ago. The study has been completed. The supervisor's area is a little bit different. You have very different disciplines there. You have someone that is in charge of our water and sewer plant, and someone that does assessing, someone that's an engineer. So there are a lot of different disciplines there that we need to go through. So although the study's been completed, job descriptions have been completed from our end, they need to go back to the unions and we need to bargain them. So what I am stating, because I hate being in arrears on contracts, that we do a 1 year to allow this to happen. The 1 year will have the same cost of living increases as we had with the other unions under our purview, 1.5% on July 1st, 1.5%, 1.5% on January 1st, 2017, and a small increase in the clothing allowance for those that work in the field. The total cost of this contract is $30,426, with $24,000 from the tax levy and $6,426 from water and sewer.
Move to approve the supervisor's contract as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
We have several license permits and approvals. We'll license the road dog peddler application. Some of them young men that I actually know, friends of my son, who will work very hard around the lake for, what is the?
The slush lady.
The slush lady. I didn't know if I could say that. So this is the slush lady. So Luke DeMella, Thomas Lucy, Maureen Lucy, Jordan Fossey, Robert Shaw, and Jake O'Giles.
Do they work at different times for her?
Yes.
But at the
Yes.
same
Yeah.
slush
Yes.
area?
They'll work different shifts.
Because you have to sort of explain that, because someone listening think we put like 6 new slush areas
No,
on
no.
the lake, and we don't want them to hear that.
One slush card and just different shifts.
Different
Yeah.
shifts, yeah.
Good.
Move that we approve the recommendation as presented for these young folks that can work in the summer for us. And
Absolutely.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
there you go.
Great. And we have a common victual license application for New Jade Garden.
That's just a name change. It's the same
Okay.
place, yeah, 39 Tuttle Street.
Great.
So moved.
Second.
Just a name change, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. Okay, I think we're a wrap. And comments? Phyllis, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any right now,
Okay.
thank you.
Let's see.
Yes, I just have 2. First of all, please don't forget the food pantry. And secondly, I got a call the other day, and I get very few calls, but someone was very concerned about some phone solicitation they had received. And it's usually from something that you say, oh, gee, I've got to give to this. It's either police or fire or this or that, some charity. And I'll tell you, if you want to get rid of them, and this is what this woman wanted to do, because 90% of it goes to administrative fees. You know, the charities don't get, they probably get maybe $1 out of the 100, who knows, 1%, who knows. But all you have to say to them is, I'll call you right back, and it's over. It's done, because they don't want you calling them back. Or I'll leave the money at whatever this happens to be the police station. I'll bring it down to Wakefield myself. Click. So just beware of these solicitors, because the money is not going, especially if it's from an odd number.
Can I add to that? I'll go out of turn here, because I got the same call, and I went right to Steve. So I told first I asked a couple of questions, because the call started with, "Hi, I'm calling from the Wakefield Police Department.
Right.
Can we have some money to support our officers?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Oh, you are?" I said, "Are you're currently a police officer in Wakefield right now?" "Oh, well, no, I'm helping out. I'm helping out." And the phone number came in from somewhere else in Massachusetts, so it was obvious to me. And then I just said, I think this is great what you're doing. I'm on the board of selectmen in the town. I'm going to go see my friend, the chief, and I think I'll just give him the money, which I didn't, by the way.
I think that was mentioned.
And that ended the call. They're like, "Oh, okay, see you
Exactly.
later, bye."
Exactly.
So I think it would probably be helpful, just because I've been thinking about it, just big picture. Why don't we, maybe at the next meeting or whenever is right, Steve, why don't we inform folks like Mr. Sardella here, what the town really does as far as authorized or appropriate fundraising, and if you get a phone call at your house, I bet hopefully the answer is close to none. And so we can just tell everybody in the town, if you get a phone call that says, "I'm calling from the fire department or the police department," or some other potentially awkward and intimidating, like, "Geez, if I don't give to the police, I'm gonna get pulled over." People just, that awful stuff goes through. You're gonna be on a naughty list somewhere.
Right.
They're not gonna come to my house when it's burning down. Why don't we proclaim from the mountaintops here? You just hang up the phone, but if you get anybody saying, "I'm calling from Wakefield," forget about it, and we think we'll come faster to your house for having said
I told
no.
this person that called me, I said, the only thing I can remember that we authorized was really the Citizen Scholarship.
Fund, yeah.
And we that comes before us, we vote on it, and it's out there, and it's in the paper.
And if you didn't,
But
that's.
not this
I'll
other
tell you
stuff.
what happens is, it's like a state union kind of thing, where they bring them in to do it for a bunch of communities and what have you. So, and you're right, very little of it goes to the actual police officers and supports them. Most of it goes to administration. So,
Right.
So I
It's
think
kind of not, it's not illegitimate, but it's not
Right.
focused.
It's not what they purport it to be, and I
Exactly.
can't
Right.
stand that.
Right.
"Hi, I'm calling
agree.
from the
Right.
Wakefield Police
Right.
Department." No, you're not. First of all, your
Right.
call came in from Brockton.
Right.
On my caller ID. And I said, "Well, maybe he's off duty at home. I'll ask him." "No, I don't, I'm just helping." It's like, oh man, this is getting ugly. So, I think that they're preying on people in our town with that ruse. And since we can't stop them, we could at least inform people very proactively. You will never get a phone call from Wakefield.
Right.
Except
Yeah.
for Citizen Scholarship Foundation.
Right.
So hang up, feel free, feel empowered. I mean, that'd be awesome.
Listen, I don't have any of your iPads or all that new things that all you guys
Fancy
have.
stuff.
But
Yeah.
when my phone rings, it tells me who's there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't answer it if it's something I shouldn't answer. I just
Yeah.
don't answer it. You can tell. I mean, if the police department calls you, it'll say the police department. But I
Yeah,
just don't answer the phone unless I
So-
actually know who it is.
yeah.
Good point. Comments, Paul?
The only other one I'm going to add to all this talk right now is the one that's coming out from the electric company and the gas company. That's a legitimate scam that's going on right now. That one is. that's-
Legitimate scam, wait a minute.
Well,
You got me?
okay, but that is definitely one that they're putting a notice out for everyone to,
Yep.
because they're looking for information. They're actually looking to get your information through that phone call, so. I agree. Just hang up. But other than that, nope.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Tom?
While we're on the subject of dealing with annoying things like that, if you ever open a magazine and you find all of those cards come
Yes.
fluttering out,
Yeah.
well, if you send it back, they have to pay the postage for that card and anything that's attached to it. So next time you get one of those cards, attach it to a brick.
Yeah.
and put it in a mailbox.
That's awesome, Tim.
Excellent. We're teaching a lot of things to people tonight. This is awesome. Steve?
I like to ask Tom a question. I get these things in the mail, and there's $1 enclosed in it. And you get so many of them, you'd go in the poorhouse taking care of it. So I always put a big label. I don't open it. I put a big label and I say, return to sender. Do you think that actually goes back to the sender, or do you think the post office throws it away? Because I bring it to the post office.
Yeah.
What do you think happens to those?
I think it
I'd
goes
keep the
back.
dollar.
Yeah.
I would too.
$1, I usually get a nickel.
Do you think they'll send it
Stuck on
back?
something.
I don't know.
Oh, my God, that's
I think they do,
awful.
just my
It's
gut.
terrible.
I think it almost
knowledge.
has to.
That's one thing I think it's terrible.
Steve?
Two very quick things, Madam Chairman. Pat Glynn, who could not make it tonight because of a work commitment, he is running on, I believe, his 4th or 5th Boston Marathon on Monday. So
Great.
and he's running for charity, so we should wish him well on that again, as he's run every year. And he does a great job, and he finishes strong. So we do wish you well, Pat. And finally, at our next meeting next week, we will be bringing forward the 23 Eaton Street property that we did go out to bid on. The restrictions of the board, 1 or 2 family. We had 7 or 8 bids on this, with the high bid coming in at over $400,000.
Great.
And we had some very serious bids on that, so that was great, and that shows you what property is doing in Wakefield. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
I just very quickly like to congratulate Captain Richard Smith of 43 years on the fire department. He had a great retirement party at Bear Hill this past weekend, and I wish him well in his retirement. But that's it.
Move to adjourn, Madam Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.